really excited. Now we're going to have some special people on, Patricia and Daniel Cardona, who were mentored by Hunbat's men and our Mayan teachers. And so let's just see, I think you guys there in the house, Patricia and Daniel. Let's see if Neil's got them in the room yet here. There you are. Beautiful. If you like, you guys can start your camera. There we are. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so looking forward to working with you next weekend as well on the Mayan Civilization Conference. And I just want to, I'm actually going to read your bio because it's really wonderful for everybody to be able to know the depth of experience that you guys have and all that has been going on there over the years with what you've been bringing and your legacy that you're carrying here. So Patricia and Daniel Cardona are co-founders of a charitable foundation called the Cosmic Mysteries School. And they've been teaching ancient shamanic wisdom teachings for spiritual, mental, and physical transformation and healing since 1996, when the school was started. And actually, many of you may have heard of Hunbat's men. He actually requested and was a director, a solar Mayan elder, Hunbat's men, of their organization. And Patricia was gifted with Nagaku, which is Hunbat's men's ancient Tibetan crystal skull, and his sastun after his death. I don't know if I said that right, but you guys can correct me later. After his death in 2016. Nagaku, the crystal skull, carries Hunbat's men's energy and frequency legacy forward to this day. Besides being a board certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, Daniel J. Cardona, MD, has been a student and practitioner of the martial and energy arts for more than 25 years. And Patricia Morris Cardona, MS, APRN, is a board certified advanced nurse practitioner and has performed energy healings in person and remotely for more than 36 years. Daniel and Patricia help others learn to use energy movement, energy medicine, ceremony, meditation, and sexual alchemy for healing and rejuvenating the body and accelerating the frequency of the mind and spirit into cosmic consciousness. Patricia and Daniel have received the lineage as Mayan fire priestess and fire priest. They've been trained by Mayan elder Hunbat's men, Miguel Vergara Angel, Mayan fire priestess Anne Marie Vergara, and Peruvian Incan elder Williru Hiuata, and other elders. So you can tell we are in for a treat here with these lovely beings today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to start by a way that we learned many things from our teacher. And one of the things we learned was how to start when we were presenting or we were doing ceremony. We always started by thanking the great central sun and putting on our headband. So call upon the great central sun. You move into your grace and your space. You bring your cosmic knowledge and wisdom into us now. We make this offering to you on all levels. We make this offering of love to you on all levels. One of the things that Hunbat's did was he was always teaching, and we were continuously learning from him. We always said if he ever opened his mouth, we needed to have a recorder on or a video on, because it was always something that was going to be tremendous that we would want to always remember. So we've made quite a lot of video of him, and some books and things we made to try to help him with his teachings and bringing them forward. And we're going to share some of those next weekend. So we're looking forward to that.
And one of the other reasons for the headband is that, and I'm sure many people know, is that when you connect to ritual, especially when you've been taught by a teacher who comes from a long lineage, when you perform the ritual, whether it's what you wear, the headband, the sounds, the music, you're really connecting to that whole lineage that can sometimes go back thousands of years. Martial artists know that. The practitioners in Asia know that, and that's why they do things just like they were taught by the teachers. If you change them, you can create a new lineage, and then the people 1,000 years into the future can benefit from that lineage. But we're connecting,
right,
with the teachers and their lineages that we've been taught through.
Right.
So, and you say that there's sometimes there's a gap in knowledge, like people are repeating the ritual without knowing exactly what it means, and other times
yes,
the meaning is kept intact.
Yes. And one of the things that we'll be talking about next week is that even if some of that has been lost or cannot be understood by the intellectual mind, once you connect with it, once you connect with the chant and the music, and especially the sacred sites, they're very powerfully energetic, then you can go into that altered state and then bring back that knowledge.
That makes sense. Yeah, totally. Retransmit it and reintegrate it directly.
Exactly.
We were given a lot of opportunities after doing ceremony at sacred sites with Humbat's men and other elders, for so many years, and taking groups to those sacred sites so that they could be immersed in the energy of those sites too, because each site carries with it the energy and frequency that's a little bit different of some master that's that left their lineage and energy in that particular place. And also, we're always making offerings and bringing in the higher knowledge, because the whole idea of the Cosmic Mystery School is to return to cosmic consciousness. Humbat's man always said we were getting our memory back.
And would you equate returning to cosmic consciousness with ascension? Like, are those two the same thing? Are they related? How do you all see that?
Well, we're receiving the knowledge and wisdom from the ascended masters. So we're working to make our vibrational frequency by working with them into their vibrational frequency so that we can move our energy up into those frequencies. And we found over the years that that is happening, that our frequency has changed, what we're able to manifest, what we're able to experience and create when we're doing ceremony has become more and more profound over the years. So it really is happening.
And our feedback with that is the kinds of things that we attract to our lives. So, we can look back. We've been on the planet for quite a few decades now, and we can look back and see some of the events and challenges and lessons that we attracted in the past and how they're much different. And then if we get a new challenge, we can always say, okay, what is going on here? What is happening to my energy? So the challenges that we face, the people who give us those challenges, they're helping us, and it's a good way of feedback. So I would say that we're moving along, but a lot of people around the world are moving around. People are getting more connected with the earth, and all kinds of religious connection is one way to say that, but spiritual connection. And I think the whole planet is benefiting. We still have some challenges that we're facing, but we're growing. All of us are growing.
Do you feel that in the Mayan teachings, is there an equivalent to what a lot of us are calling the new Earth right now, or the golden age, or the next phase of evolution that was foretold by Hunbats and the lineage?
Well, the Mayans, one of the things, Humbat's man was a daykeeper, they called it, a Mayan daykeeper. And so he worked with all the calendars, and the Mayans had at least 17 different calendars. So he had knowledge and understanding of them. We learned a fair amount about various calendars. And so they were so cosmically aware of time and aware of events changing and occurring and all that, that when people said things were going to end in 2012, Humbat's man never said that. He said that was what some people were saying, but it wasn't his understanding, because there was, if one calendar ends, another calendar begins. So it's always an ending and a beginning, an ending and a beginning. That's why there were so many calendars that were taking you into different realities. And he was totally involved in the other realities. I can promise you that. One time I asked him a question, we were having a conference, and I was trying to understand a concept about, and I asked about the planets aligning and the great central sun and our sun being in the womb of the universe. Anyways, I asked him that, and I walked up there and he took my hand and he drew a symbol on my hand, and he said, just like these lines are crossing on your hand, so is the relationship that's happening right there. And when he did that, he immediately took me into an altered state, into that other dimensional frequency. So it was that powerful in that moment of being there. And those kind of things have happened a lot. We have had so many miraculous experiences that there's no question that there are many realities and many opportunities to move into these higher realities.
And Hunbat's really stressed cycles of time,
Right.
and there were at least 17 calendars, at least. And the temples were often calendars in themselves, so they helped keep track of time. And so a lot of our changes that we're seeing now are nothing more than how things cycle through. One of the cycles I thought was really interesting is that we grew up in Michigan, born and raised in Michigan, and in Michigan you learn about the glaciers, because the glaciers cut out the Great Lakes and so forth. And now we live in northern Kentucky, and we're seeing how far the glaciers came down. So everything north of the Ohio River is flat, including Michigan. And then below the Ohio River is hilly and so forth, most of Kentucky. I don't think there's any flat areas in Kentucky. But it lets us know that for the past 11,600 years, the glaciers have been receding, and they'll probably come back at some other point too. So this is nothing new. We were in Michigan probably 20, 25 years ago when we happened to be visiting Patricia's parents. And at that time, the water in the Great Lakes was beginning to recede. And we were all worried. We didn't know where the water was going. Was a drought occurring? And we're all worried about it. Not every day, but we certainly commented on it. And then one day, Patricia's father, who was probably in his 80s at the time, he goes, it was like that when I was a kid. In fact, it was further out. We were actually pasturing, if I remember correctly, cattle where the water is now. And sure enough, a few years later, the water's back, and now the Great Lakes are full again. So we can see these cycles, but our time on the planet is so short that the cycles aren't obvious at all. The Maya had a much bigger cosmovision. Some of their calendars were hundreds of thousands of years, and some of them were shorter. One of the shorter calendars is the Pleiadian calendar, which was 52 years. So you get a much bigger view of what's happening in the universe.
And so are you saying that the glaciers were down there in Kentucky or wherever, and then they started pulling back
Yes.
north and flattened the land as they went?
Yes. Yeah, that's the current understanding by geologists, and I didn't know that as a child. Of course, I knew about the glaciers, but we would travel down, and everything was flat, and then until you crossed the Ohio River on I-75 bridge, and then suddenly Kentucky is hilly and beautifully, hilly with hills and valleys and so forth. So yeah, the glaciers are receding, and they'll likely come back. Probably not in our lifetimes, but cycles of time.
Indeed. Yeah, somebody says you can see glacial grooves in southern Ohio.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so this skull, this Nagaku,
Wow.
wow, what an amazing thing to be able to carry and share with us. That's really special. So I've heard that, with a lot of the different sacred skulls, what they used to do is download their wisdom and knowledge into the skull. And it sounds like maybe Hunbat's had done that for us and for you all as well.
He did. It was amazing. The whole story of the skull is a long story, but it is very amazing. And it's one of 13 that were brought to the United States by a Chinese gentleman named Frank Liu. And we had all 13 in our house at one time. And anyways, he ended up giving Hunbat's men this particular skull. And you can see they're not human. It's a little smaller head than my own, and its features are not quite human. It's some extraterrestrial type of being, but each of the skulls was different. I have photos of each of them, and each one was different. They did not look all the same. But when we were we had Hunbat's men here in 2009, and we took him to Serpent Mound, which he loved, and which is in Ohio. It's only an hour and a half from us. And another lady from Africa who had purchased 2 of the skulls, brought her skulls there. And the most interesting thing was that I noticed that this skull, Nagaku, looked quite a lot different in color and frequency than the 2 skulls of the lady. And I asked Hunbat later, I said, I noticed that Nagaku looks so different. He's clearer, and he has developed a third eye. And Hunbat's men just smiled. He loved to laugh and smile. And he said, I've been working with him. So, and when I received Nagaku, after Humbat's passed, when I received Nagaku, it was so amazing because here you have this piece of crystal, but when I received him, it was like it was a child. It was it was in a sense, it was like cuddly, which you wouldn't expect to be. But yes, and he absolutely, Humbat's always says, who has more knowledge? Who has more knowledge? And he'd point at our heads and he'd point at the skulls. And he said, the skulls. Oh, the skulls. So,
They've been literally containing it. And
yeah.
then similar to what you were saying before about receiving a transmission about the meaning of an older ritual or something, you could ask for some knowledge from the skull.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. It's going to amplify the energy, and we always, I'm going to show something in the conference next week, a part of a video clip where we actually, we were present when Humbats was helping download knowledge and information into the skull. So I have a video clip of that I'm going to show next week.
Gosh,
It's
that's
pretty
really
amazing.
something.
Really, yeah, it's very beautiful, and this energy is always sweet. This one, it's always a sweet energy, powerful but sweet. So it's very, very lovely.
You think that's why Frank Lou, that's why he gave the hymn?
I think it's sweet. Like, I don't know what it was like originally, the energy of this particular one, but I think it's sweet now because I think it contains a lot of Humbatsman's essence.
It's sweetness.
Yeah, it's sweetness. He loved to laugh and play and just have a wonderful time. One of his funniest jokes they used to say with Dan all the time, they used to play this game. When Dan would knock at the door, we'd have taken him somewhere to some conference or something like that. And then we'd be picking him up to go for his time to speak or go to dinner or whatever. So go ahead.
Hunbats, like Patricia said, loved to laugh and joke and very childlike in a sense. Now, when he was doing ceremony, he was very serious. And, he was very serious about lining people up just right, geometric, so forth. But he just loved to joke. And we would go get him for dinner when we were at a conference, and I would knock on the door, and he'd say, "Who is it?" And I was always either, "This is the FBI," or this is the CIA, and he'd be cracking up inside, of course, and he'd say something funny. But he loved to joke about things. And and he saw the humor in many things. So back to the skull, of course, Nagaku is ancient. You can see that the quartz has a patina on it. So who knows how old it is? It's very, very ancient, at least when it was cut. But Humbats would laugh when people would say, yes, but they would look at another skull and there would be an argument, so to speak, or a debate about, well, was that cut a long time ago, or is that a modern cut? And of course, some skulls, Nagaku and others, were cut very ancient. But he'd always say, that's funny because the quartz is very ancient. It's really what the quartz matters, and that's what holds the memory. Patricia bought for me a little skull, much more compact than Nagaku, that I can just put in my pocket. And she bought it for me in Glastonbury when we were looking at some of the sacred sites in England that time.
2003.
2003. Patricia's very good with the dates. I'm not. But so I always take that with me to sacred sites and ceremony. It's been in so many different places, France and Peru. It's been just everywhere. And it is so different now than it was. It's hard to describe. It's like there's a light inside. So the point of this is when you have your crystals, have them as part of ceremony, when you visit a sacred site or any place special, your favorite mountain, take them with you because they grow with the ceremony. We do, and the crystals do, and you form that relationship. Right. One of Patricia's sayings that I love to hear her say, and she's talking about so many things, not just people, but with elements, the weather, the plants, the animals, the crystals. It's all about relationships.
Wow. Yeah. And it makes me feel like, because I've traveled all around the country, and then I brought some crystals back to Sedona and then let them go again there. And it's almost like they went and they gained what they needed to know from all the travels, and then they brought them back to the land.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're doing their little work and their job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely true. They're always doing their work too. And we don't know their purpose or how they came in here or what they came in to do. So it's always very interesting to be able to share space and time and energy and watch how things evolve. And one of the things that is so Mayan is that you have to develop into the inner knowledge, into the energy of the inner knowledge before you can access a lot of um, well, Humbats would always call them the powers, the seven powers. He would talk about that. But to be able to access those, you have to be working and changing your frequency, because you cannot access them until you do. So that's part of the whole relationship. The idea is accessing and moving with it. It's like with copal. So I'm a fire priestess. So one of the things we work with is copal. And copal is a sacred resin from a tree in Mexico. And we use it to smudge, to cleanse people, to smudge space, to keep things clear. We use it to make offerings, to bring in the higher forces, and to cleanse and clear ourselves. We use it for many things. But because of the whole idea of relationship and developing a relationship, it's like Carlos Castaneda said, in his work, in his books, he talked about making an alignment and a relationship with, it could be a plant being or whatever. Well, it's the same thing for me with the copal, because I've worked with it so long that I have a relationship with it now. I've developed that relationship. And so because of that, I can actually bring it in and send it into a room, even if, or a person that I'm healing, when I'm doing a healing on someone, even if I can't light it. Okay. So, but yeah, because it has relationship with me, so it's happy to come through and do its work, even if I'm not allowed in this particular space or time to actually light it and have the smoke be in the room. It'll actually come through. So that's a very clear example of what happens over time as you continue to work with an essence, an energy, a plant being, a plant resin, whatever, because your intentions are correct and you're only trying to help, you're only trying to heal, you're only trying to raise your own consciousness, you're only trying to return into that higher consciousness.
That's beautiful. I have a similar relationship with selenite.
Mm-hmm.
We work with it, etherically. It does all kinds of fun things. So it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it in that way about the relationship, but maybe I've had a relationship with selenite for other lifetimes or something too, where that was just like, oh, there that is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you're right. I bet that's exactly what it is. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's a wonderful example that you know personally. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. And also like essential oils, copal, I'm not sure if they make an oil out of it, but it's a resin, but it's like you can ask them to do what you want them to do. And we can we can communicate with these elements and elementals and these rocks and crystals and
absolutely
like that.
Yeah, there's so many things that come alive. We all know when we talk to our pets, if you treat an animal just like an animal, then they're okay. But if you talk to them and you have the sense that they're listening, they respond to you so differently. And people who have pets will swear, whether it's cats, dogs, or whatever, that they understand what you're saying. We don't know how they do, but it's the relationship. And in the Maya, and we're going to talk more about this next week, did this in many different ways. And one of the ways was ceremony. Another way, the calendars. And when you understand a little, you don't have to understand everything there is to understand about the calendars. None of us do. But when you just appreciate the fact that these calendars are describing some cycle, I'll never forget the first time after studying with Hunbats for a few years. In the winter, the Pleiades, we can see the Pleiades. Beginning mid-late October, where we are now, it starts to rise. I mean, it's always out there, but in terms of being at night where you can actually see it. And I will never forget the first time I saw the Pleiades. I mean, I choked up and had tears in my eyes. It was in the middle of the winter, and it was cold, and I could see it, and I had my little binoculars. And then you can appreciate how we're so connected to everything. When you walk in the woods and you can identify a few trees, and suddenly the woods, wherever you are, become alive, and you're starting to form that relationship. And we're going to go into more of this next week about the other ways that our brain changes when we go outside. Our brain changes when we listen to certain kinds of music, especially in the drumming way. Now, there's a lot of beautiful music out there, and it's nice to listen to. But the indigenous populations around the world, they had specific rhythms. And it's so interesting how the scientists are helping us appreciate the reason they had that rhythm is because our brain responds to it. Now, and that's nice to know, but it's not going to help you. And one of the teachers that we love so much, who is teaching us this healing modality, she frequently says, as she's teaching us a new level, your mind can't help you here. And so once you're in the rhythm, once you're outside, once you're in the ceremony, once you let go of the thinking mind, beautiful things happen.
Yeah. It makes me think of how many people have been nature deprived over maybe the last couple of years in particular.
Yes.
So I guess most of the ceremony and everything, I mean, they lived more outside, much more connected to nature, generally speaking, even the way the houses were built and designed and their daily lives. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so I think, we can do a lot of healing just by making an effort to go out in nature. Is what
going out in nature. Yes. And go ahead.
Having a relationship, it's like part of the whole Mayan tradition and everything too, is having this really deep relationship with the sun. That as our sun, the sun in the central galaxy, all that. But when you develop a relationship with nature and the elements deeply, you can see that relationship firsthand. So if it's it can be sunny out, and whenever I walk out of the house and I see the sun for the first time, I'm always like so happy, and my heart is just full, and I look at the sun and I'm just I'm so grateful, and I say a prayer of gratefulness and ask for a cleansing, of my body, mind, and spirit, and I'm just so grateful. And the sun brightens. It absolutely, absolutely does. And it responds to you. And the leaves on the trees may move. When we do different things, when we do ceremony, all kinds of mysterious things happen because the elements are responding to us, because they know that we know, and we are in a relationship with, we're in a living, breathing, it's not a thought, it's a feeling, it's an action, it's a resonance. And so you will see and feel them respond. It's very amazing.
Like they're like, ooh, the humans took
yes
off for a sec. We can talk to them now.
Yeah.
One of our teachers will often say, when you're in this mode, and whether you're interacting with your icons or whatever, it's sort of like, don't just look at them, but watch them looking at you, watching them. And you can do that with the trees and the plants and the sun. And there's a really fun story. We were in Ireland at the time, and we had a guide. I'm not sure what site that was.
It was his family's land. It was an ancient site that happened to be on his family's land. So I'd made contact with him, and we were going to viewing the site.
That's right. Yeah, and he knew a lot about the land.
Right.
He had a lot of information, a lot of intellectual information, and he really enjoyed showing us and telling us the stories about these the certain kinds of
cairns.
Mounds. Yeah, cairns.
They had the cairns there, yeah.
Right, and you could go inside, and they were different places, and he had a lot of information. We enjoyed what he was telling us, and so forth, and sort of organizing the story in my mind. And there was a sense that he was sort of placating us in some way.
Right.
Here these Americans are coming over to Ireland. We're going to show the Americans the cairn and so forth. And this is really interesting stuff. And he was very polite. But then Patricia started a ceremony. And it was cloudy and, frequently out in, UK and Ireland and those places, windy and rainy and so forth. And then Patricia started the ceremony. We all joined in. We're doing some chanting, some lighting some incense and so forth. And suddenly for a brief moment or two, maybe several minutes, the clouds open and the sun comes out. And this guy who had all this information, which was wonderful, suddenly he's looking up at the sky, and it changed his whole perspective on the whole thing. It was beautiful. It was fun for us. It was fun to see his response. It was a beautiful
We weren't
experience.
trying to do that to him. We were just
No.
being in relationship. We were
Yeah.
just doing what we came there to do, to be in relationship with that land, to be in relationship with the ancestors of that land. And anyways, and then that's what occurred. So
Yeah.
it was a lovely example.
There's some wise Americans out there after all.
Yes.
After all,
What are they
right?
doing?
After all, right?
It was so much. We first experienced this watching Hunbats do
Mhm.
ceremony, and one of the things that I remember, he always wore white. He had white pants, white shoes, white socks, and we would be traipsing around the pyramids, and sometimes it was dusty, sometimes a little muddy and so forth, and we would get we'd get our clothes dirty, but his always stayed white. Not only did, things change, and birds and bees and everything else, and fish
Right.
jumping out of the pond and everything else, but his clothes never changed. It was
Right.
so interesting. But he had the relationship.
Yeah. And so when he was born into a family that had the daykeeper tradition already in that family? Is that?
Yeah, he was recognized as, when he was age 6, he was recognized that he was going to be a Mayan teacher. And so in his village, his uncle, Don Beto, told his family that he was, and to make sure that he wasn't sent to any regular schools or anything like that. He needed to stay in the Mayan tradition and only be taught the Mayan. He learned to speak English, and he spoke Spanish and English and all these other languages, but all his first information and language and everything was totally Mayan. And so, yes, he was chosen at a very young age and raised into it.
Whew. Can you imagine our planet when that type of cultural wisdom returns to where we recognize the children,
Yes.
what they're meant to be, and
Yes,
start giving them that input right at that time?
Mhm.
yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, it
Very
changed
good.
everything. I'm like, I wish I had people, it's like, what if each of us had people really recognizing us at that age for
Right.
what we're here to
Mhm.
do? And now it's up to us to do that for ourselves. And
Yes,
Yes.
that's what we're doing, isn't it? We're
yes, it is.
remembering, and you
Yeah.
guys, people like yourselves, are helping people find that reconnection and that remembrance through all that you do, and all that you've learned, and all that you're carrying forward from all these wonderful traditions and teachers.
Yeah. And we try to do that through experience.
Yes.
It's there are many people out there who have an encyclopedic mind, can give lots of facts and figures, and that's all interesting, and it's I like listening to that. I have books and books and books. But then what we like to do with the people who travel with us to different megalithic sites, they will have an experience, and they will take back with them some profound learning experience or emotional connection, some profound memory. Sometimes it's really difficult to put it into words, but very interesting things happen. And it's not us, it's just
Right.
everybody as a group, forming this relationship with the sacred site or the mountain or, wherever we happen to. And it's so much more powerful when we do it as a group.
Right.
Right.
No,
The
maybe
solitary meditation is powerful, but as a group, it's mind-blowing.
really beautiful. Yeah. And there's a relationship perhaps with that person, with that place, or their
Mhm.
ancestors, even either them in another life, or maybe their ancestral DNA and their lineage there. And then
Yeah.
things get activated just by intentionally going
It-
to that
It's
place.
so hard to understand this, but for some reason, Humbats, we knew him for so many years and helped him for so many years that for some reason I could communicate. I couldn't speak Spanish. I certainly couldn't speak mine, but he spoke English quite well. But for some reason, sometimes somebody would be asking him a question or something would be going on, and he wouldn't understand what they were saying. And he would turn and look at me, and I would repeat to him exactly what they said. But for some reason, when I said it, he understood it. Then he'd answer the question, whatever it was. So yeah, somehow we knew each other from so many times, because we were so devoted to him, and who could explain why that was? And the very first time we met him, after we met him and did ceremony with him that very first time, he asked us then to start the school. It took us a couple years to really start the school, but he asked us then to do it. So some kind of deep, ancient relationship. Yes.
Really something. Are you still in touch with any of his people from?
Yes, yes, with his son Cesar. And we would have tried to, well, we're going to see what we can do. But Cesar does not speak English. Well, so that's one of the problems with it. But anyways, we've tried many things with communication and all that, and we email, and he has another man he works with that helps him with the emails and all our communication. So it's all good, and he's wonderful. We spent so many years watching him cart his dad. Back in the old days, the cameras were so huge, and here we'd be in the boiling sun, and there would be Cesar carting this camera around for his dad, videoing his dad, so.
And Cesar was very devoted to his dad, but Cesar helped his dad in many ways, but wasn't really involved in the Mayan teaching, even though he was always there in the hot weather and 100 degrees, and he's carrying the camera and taking a lot of video. But I think, and we're going to help him with this.
Right.
We think he's going to become more interested. He has a lot of video and access to this, and we're going to help him
go forward with that.
Go forward with that.
Yeah, because at Low Bay, that's a sacred site in Mexico that the mystery schools helped Tumbat's men to create, and we'll see some. There's a picture of him.
There he is.
There he is.
Yeah, isn't he a beauty? And
yes,
all there. I just thought everybody might like to see his face as we're
seeing. Yeah, that's perfect.
Very nice. And he has the Mayan glyphs on his shirt. Yeah. So you can see those glyphs on his shirt, which would have particular symbols in him.
Yes. And we'll be showing many pictures and videos next week.
Right. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks for showing that.
Beautiful. I see Michelle's popped in. Did you want to ask a question?
I don't know if you can see this flyer that they did.
Yes. I see Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, and your picture's on it. I see you. Can you? I don't know if the lighting is right.
Oh yeah, we can see it. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So I just had to jump on because I met Cesar in 2019 in Blythe. He came to a Star Knowledge Summit that I was at, and we became friends even with the language barrier. And he's a very gentle and kind soul. It just emanates from him. His father was so playful, and I don't know if you can see this picture, but Hunbots gave me a private tour in Chichen Itza.
Yes.
And that's at the observatory. So I was introduced to him by a woman who had some skulls that she was communicating back and forth with him. And then she introduced me to him. I happened to be in the Yucatan Peninsula, and he did a private tour for me. And it blew me away, but everything that you're saying is just so resonant, and it's really bringing his essence back, feeling how joyful and kind. And
he loved to teach. He loved to teach. He loved to share what he knew so much. And one time when we were at a sacred site, there were a school with a bunch of children there. We were just getting ready to do our ceremony. We're just going to begin. And then the school showed up with all this ton of kids. And we didn't know what was going to happen. And before you knew it, he had gone, and Tumbat's men went over and talked to the teacher and got all the children involved in the ceremony. Mm-hmm. So he was always like that. He loved children.
He was like the Pied Piper of fun. I just wanted to follow him and play with him. He was very childlike. And when we were at Chichen Itza, and I asked him if we can do ceremony, he had gotten, I think, the guards weren't too happy about the big one, Mm-hmm. So I said, aren't you going to be with us? He's pointed to a bench, and he he sat over there. So he let me know we couldn't be publicly doing the ceremony. And then he showed me where to go. And it was a telepathic experience that we had when we did this. I just wanted, my heart was so full of love, and we wanted to transmit that to the area. And there was a very strong, he had telepathy for sure. Just being able to dial in and hear those messages. So I just had to pop in and say that. I didn't want to
Thank you.
Thank you.
interrupt, but I thank you so much for bringing his essence back around. It really inspired me today, and thank you for the work that you're doing and continuing the work.
Indeed. Neil, do you want to hop on now and we'll talk with these guys and chat about the conference coming up next week? It's Neil's brainchild, I think, or Souls, or one of your guys' idea to do the Mayan Civilization Conference next weekend.
Yeah. Hey, Patricia, Daniel, nice to see you guys in person.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Your volume's a little hot there, Neil, just to let you know.
Oh, my microphone's loud, or what is it?
Scratchy and hot.
Yeah, I know what it is. Hold up. Should be better now.
That's a little too low. Find the sweet spot.
I've always had an issue with balance. So there we go. I think that's better, right?
That's perfect.
All right, cool. So yes, I am really excited to connect with you guys. And when Sharia recommended you be a part of it and showed me so much information that you guys go into so many different things, that I'm just really happy to just continue this relationship and see where it goes. And this is the first, everybody, this is the first time that I'm gonna be working with Patricia and Daniel for this event. And it is coming up this weekend on 10/10, so Sunday, a week from today, actually. And it's our first that Sharia and I are cultivating and creating an ancient civilization series. And I've mentioned this a couple times during the weekend. We are going to be doing a different ancient civilization pretty much every single month for a whole 12 months. The Maya Empire, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Indus Valley, the Tartarians. We're just going to go on and on. After years of doing conferences and presentations, now I'm having the opportunity to go into certain things very deep. Like we did around 6 true world history conferences, right? And we spoke about maybe 10 different civilizations on each one of them. But now we're actually just taking one civilization and going as deep as possible. And this is it here. It's going to be all day. You do get unlimited replay access. And how about I hand it over to you guys? Do you want to talk about maybe what you want to share at this event?
Well, yes, we're so happy to be able to do this because we have so many things that we could share. And one of the things that I'm very excited about sharing is we're going to be showing we have a Mayan codex, a copy of a Mayan codex that was Humbat's men's. And there's a long story about how he got it, which is a very interesting story. But we have a copy of it, and I'm going to be showing some clips of him presenting the codex and showing the meaning of it. And that was one of the most profound things, was his ability, because his mind, he was in the higher knowledge. He was he was connected to all the levels of consciousness. And so he could look at that codex and go through it and understand it. And he encouraged the rest of us to do that too, to go through it and be with it and gain the knowledge of it. But so we're going to show video clips of him, and I'm excited for you to be able to see it, because you'll be able to see him, feel and see his essence, and hear him telling the interpretation of what he understood about that codex. So that's one of the things I'm excited about.
And then I'm also going to show a picture of a stucco carving from Chichen Itza. It happens to be in the ball court, and we refer to it as the Headless Warrior. But what I'm going to show is that although I'm sure they meant well, but the archaeologists and the anthropologists suggested that this depicted human sacrifice. But what I'm going to show during the period of time that I'm talking is this really shows one of the greatest secrets hidden within the Mayan religion. We're going to talk about what it means, and I'm also going to share some exercises so that people can actually use what that carving is teaching. So rather than just kind of explain what it means, et cetera, we're going to do some things so that people can walk away with some specific exercises so that they can actually go, as Hunbat's men often said, go inside the knowledge.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Our goal is really to have everybody participating to have the experience of being immersed into this different vibrational frequency and energy. So we have different things that we're going to do that should help you to do that. Oh, and there's Alan Seinfeld.
Hey, I wanted to show you a little picture of me and Humbats from, you were there, I think.
Yeah, we were there. Yeah, we were there with him. Yes.
At the 10-10-10 Crystal Skull event in New York, there were 30 crystal skulls and 500 people, and Humbats created this big kind of circle in the whole place with everyone holding a skull was on the inside and everyone else walked around this big auditorium. Wasn't that amazing?
Yes.
It was amazing. Yes, it was totally amazing. It was incredible.
He directed the whole thing, you know, and there were these other Mayans there as well.
We had Don Alejandro, and we had Pedro Pachuk.
Right. It was just, anyway, I have videos of that if you want to see that sometime.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, you put Hunbats in a room and people, and you're going to have a ceremony. Sure.
It's going to happen.
That's right.
Well, good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Thanks.